In conclusion, Haile Selassie did not like the teachings of the Tewahedo Church for many, many reasons. For one, he didn't like their traditions. So the very first thing he did during his coronation was be crowned with his empress. He didn't like the fact that they want you to kill a lion in order to be an emperor. Hence, he had lions living with him in his palaces. He did not like their 81 book Bible. He did not like the fact that they're not praying or following the commandments of the Lord God of Israel. For he himself, above all, follows the commandments. So let's read what they're doing. Jesus, the son of Naz, successor of Moses. He fought in the sight of the Lord, and he followed the mighty one in the time of Moses. So when was this? Notice Ecclesiasticus. So in the beginning of Ecclesiastes, it tells you that Jesus did this in the latter times. So this Jesus was the son of Sirach, grandchild to Jesus. This man therefore lived in the latter times after the people had been led away captive. Remember, Moses is supposed to lead the people away and lead them to the Father, and call home again as almost after all the prophets. Hence there will be two Jesus during Revelation, and they will be together with Moses, considering Jesus is the successor of Moses. As we could clearly see, Ecclesiasticus in the later times or latter times. And what's going to happen? This is the book of the generations of Adam. That's when life started. In the day when God created man, male and female created he them and blessed them and called their name Adam in the day when they were created. In other words, Adam means couples. But according to the Tewahedo Church, they want you to think you came from Adam. No, you came from God. And who did God love more than all? Now, Israel loved Joseph more than all his children. That's why Joseph is Christ. And he shall thou indeed reign over us, and shalt thou indeed have dominion over us. So as you can clearly see, Israel loved Joseph. So who is Israel? Israel for his special property. And who is that? For Jah has chosen even Jacob for himself. Praise Jah, for Jehovah is good. You are standing in the house of Jehovah, our God. Hence Jehovah's name is Jacob himself. Also goes by the name of Israel. That's who God is. So let's watch what they're doing.
Say Jesus spoke Aramaic.
Where does the Bible say Jesus spoke?
Yes.
Matthew 7, he says Raka.
Don't Raka Baka Kaka, yeah? Show me in the Bible where it says Jesus spoke Aramaic.
It doesn't actually say he spoke Aramaic. However,
brother, I'm speaking to him, yeah? So he's going to show me evidence now because he came with a lot of energy.
It doesn't specifically say in the Bible that he speaks Aramaic.
So it doesn't say it.
But he uses Aramaic.
So it doesn't say Jesus spoke Aramaic in the Bible.
Yeah. For two.
Okay, bonjour, commissariat de police. Okay, does that mean I speak French now? Because I've got a couple of phrases in French. No. Okay.
Salam alaikum.
In other words, the church is what teaches you that. So let's see who the church is and what they are. They're pagans. So after Alexander the Philip the Macedonian, who came from the land of Kittim and defeated Darius, the king of the Persians. In other words, he defeated Iran and the Medes, Syria, Turkey, and Iraq, also known as Babylon. In other words, pagans. So then he divided his kingdom, and each ruled in his own place, and they all put on crowns after his death. So they put on crowns in Rome, which became a kingdom of the Greeks. Don't forget, the Tewahedo Church is a Greco-Roman church. So you see Greek, Greco, Hellenistic, Rome. They're teaching you Roman stuff. So they built a gymnasium in Jerusalem according to Gentile custom. In other words, they took over Jerusalem, telling you to read some fake Hebrew. And they also took over Egypt. So he plundered the land of Egypt after subduing Egypt. In other words, they took it over. And what did people do in his land? So it became an ambush against the sanctuary and an evil adversary of Israel continually. In other words, Jerusalem became an evil adversary to Israel. In other words, Jerusalem is not in Israel today. So why? Because the residents of Jerusalem fled, and she became a dwelling of strangers. She became strange to her offspring. And what does it clearly say? Many even from Israel. Remember, Amos 9:7. Are you not children of Ethiopia unto me, O children of Israel? So what does this clearly say? Many even from Israel gladly adopted his religion. They sacrificed to idols and profane the Sabbaths. If I was to go to Ethiopia right now, they're having two Sabbath days, the Roman Sabbath and the Ethiopian Sabbath. If I was to go to Ethiopia right now, they're going to tell me Jesus died today, but he's going to die next year in May. Or in other words, that the world has two Easters, right? So that means every year Jesus dies on two different Fridays and rises on two different Sundays. In other words, they're following the pagans. Hence, they're profaning the Sabbaths and the feasts. So they should forget the law and change all the ordinances. And that's exactly what they're doing. Let's watch.
And behold, a great earthquake happened, and an angel of the Lord, one angel. Now, the question I actually have is,
was it one angel or was it two angels?
That's not the question. The question is, you just brought that up, thank you.
Yes.
That is a problem as well. In this verse, when they came, the stone was already gone.
Right.
In the earlier verse, they came, and the stone is there, and angels descend and sits on the stone.
Right.
And then rolls it away. So was the stone already rolled away, or was it still there when the Marys went there?
Right. Notice the text also says,
Yes.
in the other text, that there is an inconsistency.
There.
There's a contradiction.
Oh, hello. They changed the word. The pagans went and changed the word. Now they got people doubting everything they say. Let's watch.
Died on the cross. Who died on the cross?
His human nature.
His human nature died.
Yes.
What happened to the divine nature?
He was empty.
He was empty. So before he went on the cross, was the divine nature empty?
As defined in Philippians, yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, notice this is a big heretical statement. Christians have to believe Jesus is 100% human and 100% divine. It's
not
to
the
do
case.
with the gnosis doctrine, which he is unaware of.
I did not say that God did not die on the cross. God did die on the cross. It's
God
defined.
did die on the cross.
Yes, that is the official church document.
That's the official.
Church. They're the ones who changing the story. So you can clearly see the Bible clearly tells you, for Jah has even chosen Jacob for himself. Now who is Jacob? In Matthew 1. Jacob became father to Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom Jesus was born. Read it slow. Jacob, who is God Israel, became father to Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom Jesus is born. In other words, Jesus is the grandson of Jacob. And Jacob's favorite son is Joseph, also known as Moses, also known as Solomon, also known as David. For Joseph is Christ. That's his favorite son. Yet still, according to the pagans, they want you to think that Joseph was here 2,000 years ago and Jacob was here 3,000 years ago.
We talked about John 3:16, right? For God so loved the world. So now, I want to teach y'all something real quick. I bet you didn't know this. Did you guys know that Christ was quoting from the Old Testament when he said that? Did you know that?
Yes.
Where from?
I don't know. Was it Jeremiah?
Nope.
Or Isaiah?
Nope.
Okay, where is this?
Nope. What you think, Nana?
Tell us.
It's in Joel.
Joel
Give me
what?
Joel chapter 2
Hold on.
and verse 32.
And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be delivered.
So it's the same thing, right?
In the book of Esdras, it lets you know that Joel is the angel of the Lord. Hence, Joel is one of God's many names, just like John. Currently, we are in the revelation of St. John, the divine one. Hence, both John and Joel are one of God's many names.
Christ said that as well, didn't he? John 3:16, right? Come on.
For in Mount Zion,
Where?
in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem shall be deliverance.
So where is the world that he was referring to? It says, for God to love the world, that what? That whosoever believeth on him shall not perish but have everlasting life. That's what this is talking about. It's the same thing.
No.
And watch this. Get verse 27.
No.
Get verse 27. Watch this, sis. Watch this. Read verse 27.
Joel 2, verse 27.
Interpret this for me.
And ye shall know that I am in the midst of Israel, and that I am the Lord your God, and none else.
What does that mean, sis?
Listen, who shall call upon the name of the Lord? They don't know the name of the Lord.
But it says whosoever right there too, right?
We are here to tell people about Jesus. We should not make it about
We're
ourselves.
reading the Bible, sis.
But are you telling people about Jesus?
We are. We just read Jesus' words.
Jesus was never crowned Lord. He was never crowned King. Like, stop making stuff up. So that's what God says. Of all good things of the world, which are accomplished by the wisdom of men and which can only be realized by that wisdom, health is a divine gift which is to be found above all those who take care to guard it well. Haile, Selassie the first. In other words, health is first. So let's see who paganized Ethiopia. The original church is believed to have built during the reign of Izana. In other words, it wasn't built until the 17th century. Anytime you see according to church tradition or believed to be, that means it's made up. So basically, Facilis in the 17th century built the church. And what did he do? He basically gave power to the Tewahedo church, basically to the Egyptian. So if an emperor was not crowned of Axum or did not at least have his coronation ratified by a special service, he could not be referred by the title of Atsa or Emperor of Ethiopia. In other words, they placed the title of Defender of their Faith to the emperors since the 17th century, after Ethiopia got paganized. So who paganized Ethiopia? Facilis. So what did he do? He is the one. So Emperor Facilis also built the cathedral church, the St. Mary Zion of Axum. He is the one who built it in the 17th century. And what did he do? Once he became emperor, he restored the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Hence, he called for the Abuna Patriarch of Alexandria. In other words, he called for an Egyptian to come paganize his country. That's why it says, follow God and not man. Jagat.